You check your account at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. The number is what it always is. Not enough to quit, just enough to stay. Tomorrow, you will wake up at 6:15 a.m. You will drink coffee that tastes like regret. You will sit in traffic for 37 minutes. And when you walk through those glass doors, your employer will look at you and see a number. Not your potential, not your effort, not the late nights or the weekends you gave up, just a number. And that number determines exactly how they treat you. Here is what your employer sees at every level of salary. From the $30,000 employee who gets denied vacation days to the $500,000 executive who gets a car service and equity. The truth is uncomfortable, but you need to hear it. Level 1, $30,000. You are a cost. At $30,000, you are not an employee. You are a line item, and the company's goal is to minimize you. You ask for a Monday off in June, just one Monday. Your manager hesitates. She checks a calendar, then she says, sorry, coverage is tight that week. Try again in the fall. You do not try again. You learn not to ask. The coffee machine in the break room has been broken for 8 months. There is a sign on it that says parts on order. Nobody is ordering parts. At $30,000, your time is not yours. You clock in, you clock out, you request PTO in an online system that requires manager approval, director approval, and HR notification. 3 people need to say yes before you can see your own family, and sometimes they still say no. Your employer treats you like a resource because to them, you are one. If you quit on Friday, they would have a job posting up by Monday. They would find someone else. Someone who will also drink the terrible coffee and sit in the traffic and check their account at 11:47 p.m. But something interesting happens when that number changes. Level 2, $60,000. You are an asset. At $60,000, you are no longer a cost. You are an asset, and assets get monitored. Your employer has invested in you now. Not because they like you, because replacing you would cost $15,000 in recruiting fees and 3 months of lost productivity. So they watch you more closely. You notice small things. Your director starts showing up to your one-on-one meetings. Your emails get forwarded with thoughts in the subject line. The time tracking software on your laptop feels less like a tool and more like a leash. At $30,000, nobody checked your work. At $60,000, your failure matters. So they watch. You now have 27 hours of meetings per week. Most of them could have been emails. But meetings are how your employer measures your engagement. If you are in a room, you are working. If you are at your desk, they wonder what you are doing. You eat lunch at your desk now, not because you have to, because you noticed that the person who got promoted last year ate lunch at their desk. Correlation is not causation, but you are not taking chances. Here's the thing about $60,000. It feels like success until you do the math. You are working 55 hours a week. Your effective hourly rate is $21. That is only $7 more per hour than you made at $30,000. And at $30,000, you worked 40 hours. You had evenings. You had weekends. Now you have neither. Level 3, $90,000. You are an investment. At $90,000, something shifts. Your employer starts calling you talent instead of staff. You get invited to the High Potential Development Program. It is 3 days of workshops about leadership and emotional intelligence. There is free coffee, not from the broken machine, from a caterer. Your manager asks about your career goals, not as a formality. She actually writes them down. She talks about a development path that leads to a director title in 18 to 24 months. But here is what nobody tells you. At $90,000, you are now expensive enough to keep and cheap enough to lose. You are in the danger zone. Your employer will give you development programs and catered lunches and career conversations, but when layoffs come, you are in the second round. The $30,000 employees are too cheap to cut. The $150,000 employees are too expensive to lose. You are in the middle. You are the efficiency target. And you feel this. You feel it when they announce restructuring and you see 3 people from your floor pack their boxes. You feel it when your project gets de-scoped. You feel it when your director starts asking about process improvements that sound a lot like doing more with less. This is when most people make a mistake. They work harder. They stay later. They think output equals job security. But at $90,000, output is not what your employer is measuring. Level 4, $150,000. You are protected. At $150,000, you have arrived. Your employer will now protect you. You get a parking spot, not a numbered spot, a spot with your name on a small metal plate. It is 4 feet closer to the door than the visitor spots. You notice this every morning. It feels good. Your performance reviews become shorter. The feedback becomes vaguer. Great strategic thinking, excellent leadership presence, words that mean everything and nothing. Because at $150,000, your employer has decided you are worth protecting. Not because you are perfect, because admitting you have problems would require admitting they made a mistake hiring you, and that is expensive. You notice that your mistakes get handled quietly, a conversation behind closed doors, an email that says, let's align offline, never a paper trail, never a public correction. At $30,000, mistakes got you written up. At $150,000, mistakes get you coached. The behavior is the same, the interpretation is different. But here is the trap at $150,000. You are now expensive. Too expensive to fire casually, but also too expensive to keep if the business falters. You survive the small layoffs. You do not always survive the big ones.
Level 5, $250,000. You get perks, not raises. At $250,000, your base salary stops moving. The real compensation shifts to bonus, equity, and perks. Your employer stops giving you 5% raises. Instead, they give you a discretionary bonus target of 20%, which means your income is now at the mercy of company performance, your division's performance, your team's performance, and your manager's subjective rating of your impact. You get a car service after 8 p.m. You get a wellness stipend of $1,200 per year. You get free access to a financial advisor who tries to sell you whole life insurance. You get invited to the leadership summit at a hotel that costs $600 per night. There is an open bar. There are breakout sessions about culture and psychological safety. Everyone claps when the CEO finishes talking about values. Your employer wants you to feel wealthy, because when you feel wealthy, you spend like you are wealthy. You buy the house with the bigger mortgage. You lease the car with the higher payment. You become dependent on a job that can eliminate your position with 60 days of severance. And this is the trap that most people never escape. The lifestyle inflation that locks you in. Because at $250,000, you cannot afford to lose your job. Not because you would starve, because you would lose the life you built.
Level 6, $500,000. You are a partner. At $500,000, you are no longer an employee. Your employer gives you equity, not the token equity they gave everyone at $250,000. Real equity, a percentage, a seat at the table. Your name appears in documents now, not as employee, as key holder. You get invited to board meetings, not to present, to opine. At $500,000, your interests align with your employer's interests. When the company wins, you win. When the company loses, you lose. This is by design. It is also a cage, because now you cannot leave without leaving money on the table. Unvested equity is the longest leash ever invented. 4 years, sometimes 5, sometimes with a cliff that means you get nothing if you leave in the first 12 months. Your employer treats you like royalty. The car service is now a driver. The wellness stipend is now a healthcare concierge. The office is now a corner suite with 2 entrances. But you cannot take vacation without your phone. You cannot disconnect without permission. Because at $500,000, you are not paid for your time. You are paid for your availability.
The truth, the corporation won't tell you. None of this is personal. That is the hardest truth to accept. The company does not hate you at $30,000. It does not love you at $500,000. It simply optimizes for its own survival, and you are a variable in that optimization. The coffee machine stays broken because fixing it costs $400 and nobody measured the productivity loss of bad coffee. The car service appears because your hourly rate is now high enough that 45 minutes of driving costs more than a black sedan. Your employer is not cruel, it is efficient. And efficiency applied to human beings feels like cruelty because human beings want to feel seen. Companies cannot see you. Companies can only see spreadsheets. So what do you do with this information? You check your account at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Maybe the number is higher now. Maybe it is the same. Tomorrow, you will wake up. You will drink coffee. You will sit in traffic. And when you walk through those glass doors, your employer will still see a number. The number changed. The relationship did not. Because the corporation does not learn. It does not grow. It does not wake up one day and decide to treat people better. The corporation optimizes. And you
are a variable in its optimization. The only question is whether you know the equation.